Previously on X-Men.
Welcome back, listeners, to the ComicCom Podcast. This is the first installment of Mutant Mondays with the Manimal. So when Justin and I were talking about different segments we could do on this podcast, for me, X-Men and anything mutant related is a no-brainer. I'm a massive X-Men fan. Been following the X-Men since I started collecting, what got me into collecting comic books, to be honest. And I really would like to just kind of talk about, storylines, characters, possibly any introductions we're seeing or rumors going on about mutants or X-Men entering into the MCU, possibly Disney Plus, anything like that, as well as anything you may want to hear. So, we have our email account, the ComicCom Podcast at gmail.com, where you can send in any questions, any voice memos, which we would actually prefer because it's pretty funny to play these voice memos live. And let me know if you want to hear about, for example, Days of Future Past, or if you're a new reader and you want to know what's the deal with Age of Apocalypse, what's going on there. These are things I can talk about. But for this inaugural episode, I really wanted to tackle something that's currently going on in the X-Men universe. We all know, if you're following the X-Men, that Jonathan Hickman recently took over the X-Men. I guess when I say recently, it's probably been, maybe a year or so, since almost 2 years, maybe, since House of X Powers of 10 started. But Hickman's revamped the X-Men universe across all the titles and really changed the status quo for the X-Men. In issue 5, we kind of saw a storyline pop up that dealt with X-23, Darwin, and Sync. And they've been gone from the titles since issue 5, but it's recently been solicited that in February, in issue 18, we are going to see the return of this storyline. So I kind of just wanted to prep you, get you back in line with what was going on, and explain to you what the storyline is, give you some background on some of these more obscure characters, and really just talk about X-Men. So here we go. So first off, like I said, we got to do a little background, a little research. So if you read X-Men back in the day, and you've been following for a long time, there are some pretty obscure characters that pop up here and there, some obscure villains. And back in September of 2006, we saw the introduction of a new type of characters, new group of villains, if you will, called the Children of the Vault. Their first appearance was going to be in X-Men Volume 2, number 188, and their creators are Mike Carey and Chris Bachalo. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. Pachalo, I'm not entirely sure, but I love his artwork, and I'm not a big art guy. So to be honest, I'm a big X-Men fan. There's not much that I don't like, but a lot of people do consider this one of the darker eras of X-Men writing, and Mike Carey's runs do not get a lot of praise, and a lot of people don't like them. But this is when these characters showed up. So a little background on the Children of the Vault. They're basically highly evolved beings who descended from a baseline human genetic base over a time period of 6,000 years. So they're not mutants. They're kind of considered proto-humans is what Hickman is calling them. Their society was raised in the hold of a ship tanker where temporal acceleration technology was used to evolve a collection of individuals into superpowered beings. And due to genetic drift, they are a separate species from either baseline humans or mutant humans. So what does that mean? Well, we got these new powered beings who aren't humans, who aren't mutants. And what do you think their goal is? Well, their goal is to take over the world. They think they should be the supreme race that rules the planet. And they understand that the only way to do that is to eliminate both humans and mutants. But obviously, mutants are the bigger threat. So when the X-Men kind of first interact with them, it's a whole thing. I'm not going to break down that whole storyline, but obviously our boys, the X-Men, end up winning. So the Children of the Vault kind of disappear for a little while. They pop back up later in X-Men Legacy storyline, just a little bit. One of their characters shows up. It's not a big Children of the Vault storyline, but since then, we haven't heard hide nor hair of them at all. So these are one of the more obscure villains of the X-Men universe. If you wanted to talk about another one, you could talk about the Neo. But it's really cool with Hickman's run, how he's bringing us back to some of these older storylines and connecting things, as well as mutant characters that we haven't really had, in the issues for a very long time. Two characters I'm talking about. One was Darwin. So if you know who Darwin is, he showed up in Deadly Genesis storyline. He was one of the 4 X-Men that kind of joined up with Xavier to rescue the original X-Men from Krakoa, Well, things didn't go well, and he ended up dying or thought dead. But anyway, Darwin comes back. He's been in the comics recently. He showed up in X-Factor title by Peter David. He's been around for a little bit. You might also recognize him from First Class as well. He was in that movie. And Darwin's powers are basically he's very adaptive. Like his name says, he just can adapt to any situation, and that's kind of his thing, you know? So we have Darwin, who hasn't been around very long, and we have another character who hasn't been back in a long time, and that's Sync. So if you know Sync, you may remember him from Generation X. It was kind of like the new mutants, if you will. And he was a pretty popular character for a while there. Very powerful, had the ability to kind of mimic other people's powers. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. But Sync ended up dying in Generation X, and we haven't seen him since then. I mean, he's not been one of these characters who's been resurrected at all. But obviously, with the way things are going on Krakoa now, all mutants are game, all mutants are in play, and they can come back. So what you see in issue 5 of the X-Men is, well, actually, in issue 1 of the Hickman run, we see an interaction with the X-Men and one of the children of the Vault, Serafina. So the X-Men now know they're back in. They're back around. They're doing things, and the X-Men need to keep an eye on them. So they follow Serafina back to their headquarters in Ecuador, which is like a decommissioned Sentinel creation facility that Cassandra Nova used to use. They realize they can't enter into the Vault because of the genetic base of the children of the Vault. Only they can get through this like temporal force field, if you will, into the Vault. But they need to know what's going on. The X-Men understand that children of the Vault are a very big threat, especially to the society that they're trying to build as, you know, mutants kind of preparing to more or less, you know, inherit the Earth. So the X-Men come together and put together a team that they can send into the Vault. Well, so their first pick is X-23. Obviously, they need a Wolverine. They need someone who can go through this temporal lock and still survive it. And with the healing factor that X-23 possesses, she seems like a no-brainer. Initially, maybe Wolverine was thought to be the guy they were going to send through, but he had other things going on, and we all know you can't take Wolverine out the game for that long, especially since he's been gone and dead for quite a while now. So the next person they want to send through is Darwin as well. Darwin also has the ability to, you know, adapt and evolve. So most likely he's going to survive this temporal disturbance and entrance into the Vault. And then as a backup, they bring in Sync. And they kind of tell him he is a redundant factor for their powers because he can, you know, mimic the powers of X-23, her healing power, and mimic the powers of Darwin as well in his evolution. He also provides like a secondary backup to kind of like, you know, keeping track and keeping record of what's going on. So these three are planned to be sent into the Vault and spy, find out what's going on, and then eventually to come out. Now, there's a couple problems with that. One, time moves differently inside the Vault than it does in the regular world. So they could go in there for a day or two and come back out, and it could be 1,000 years later. And I'll talk about that a little bit down the line. Some of the other issues is they can't communicate once they're inside the Vault. So they go in, they have to come back out to download the X-Men with whatever information they found inside the Vault. Also, Krakoa's resurrection protocols are very strict in terms of you can't resurrect a mutant unless death has been confirmed. So it's very dicey on them going in because the X-Men are never going to know if they don't come back out, if they've lived or died or what happened. So they're probably not going to be resurrected. And this is to prevent any kind of dual or, for lack of a better word, clones of mutants being out there in the universe. It's one of the very strict protocols of Krakoa and the Mutant Nation and the resurrection protocols that death must be confirmed. And if you want to learn more about that, you should read the X-Factor storyline, the X-Factor title, which kind of explores those protocols a little bit more and explains that better. Obviously, resurrection and all that kind of stuff is very, very convoluted. So anyway, back in issue 5 of the X-Men, they put together this team, the team of 3, X-23, Darwin, and Sync, and they send them inside the Vault to kind of, like I said, spy on the children, see what they're up to, find out any information they can, and to report back. So we have not seen them since that issue. At the end of that issue, you see, you know, it kind of tells you not 10 years in the future or anything like that. It says much later, and we see Cyclops talking to Xavier, and he says, how long have they been in there? Xavier says 3 months, 5 days, and there's been some change. And then Cyclops says, but how long have they actually been inside? And Xavier says his best guess is 537 years. So that'll kind of give you an idea of how time works differently inside there. Now, the fact that they're alive for 537 years also speaks to why these power sets were needed, because, X-23 can live a long time with the healing factor. Darwin, God only knows what can kill that guy. I mean, he pretty much he keeps evolving. He might be immortal for the most part. And then Sync as well, because he can pull off both their powers, is able to survive this also. So in X-Men number 18, the cover solicitation shows all three of them exiting the vault. We also see that it looks like, and maybe it's the artwork, maybe it's not, but just kind of going off what we see on the cover, it looks like Sync is definitely older. Darwin even looks a little bit weathered, and X-23 pretty much looks the same. So you can bet with a writer like Jonathan Hickman, who plays these long games of introducing characters in issue 5 and then not showing up again until issue 18. The Children of the Vault have a big role in what's going on. I mean, if you even go back and read the first 5 or 6 issues of this X-Men run, you will see the seeds being planted for the future storylines, as well as things like the Swords of 10 crossover that we have. I mean, that stuff is really planted early. In fact, the first 5 issues, each issue almost highlights a villain that you're not going to see until later. So Jonathan Hickman is very big on playing this long game. If you've read any of his stuff, he's super existential and kind of just really out there, and these elaborate storylines, long dialogue and whatnot. But, I'm enjoying what he's doing. He definitely seems like he has this creative control over the X-Men and is pulling the strings. And I like the fact that, we get teased something and then you kind of forget about it. There's been a big crossover since then, and then boom, here it comes back, So I'm excited to see what happens with this. After we kind of get a download, if you will, of the storyline, I'll probably come back and do another breakdown of that storyline with X-23, Darwin, and Sync, and what they found out in the Children of the Vault. But if you do want to do some background reading of your own, I would suggest the storylines of Children of the Vault showing up, which, like I said, starts in X-Men number 188. And I think it runs for about, 5 or 6 issues. You can read a little mini storyline in X-Men Legacy where they come back up as well. But to be honest, that doesn't deal a lot with the Children of the Vault. It's just kind of like an offshoot issue or a couple issues, standalone arc there. But that's the stuff you can read. Also, go back and read issues 1 through 5 is what I would suggest of X-Men to prep yourself for this issue 18 in case you've forgotten some of the details or kind of what's going on. And you should be ready for X-Men number 18, the return of X-23, Sync, and Darwin. So that's all I got here for Mutant Monday with the Manimal. Just kind of wanted to talk about a little storyline and show you guys what's up, kind of give you an idea of what this segment is going to be about. Please email me at the ComicCom Podcast at gmail.com if you want to hear any future X-Men storylines, any future questions about the X-Men. Voice memos are greatly appreciated. We really like to play those online. So please reach out to us. We want this to be your channel as well, your podcast. Hear what you want to hear, and we want to cover it. Any questions you got, we will answer. Also, as you may know, if you've been following us, every Friday morning at about 9 a.m. Eastern time, we drop our weekly kind of group podcast together, myself and Justin, aka Nemesis Prime. So keep your eyes open, or your ears open, I guess, for that. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to the terminology switching over from YouTube to the podcast format. But yeah, follow us, tell your friends. Please give us a listen. And you can also find us on Instagram at the ComicCom Podcast. And, please leave comments, let us know what's up, and we will get back to you. So until next Monday, this is the Manimal signing off, and I'll talk to you guys later.